Okay, for this particular video, we will be looking at a hybrid question, a hybrid proof question, or what we call a combined skills proof question. So basically, right, I think as the name suggests, right, you basically are looking at a combination of skills, all right, a combination of skills here. Now, in these particular questions, right, you will always see two sources. So the first skill that you need to combine is number one, the skill of comparison. Now, immediately, right, rule of the thumb, when you see two sources, compare the two sources first, okay? Check whether or not it's similar or check whether it's different. So it is the exact same way you do a normal comparison question. Now, the second way, or the second skill we're looking at is skill of reliability. Okay, reliability of the main source. Let's take a look at an example of how these questions can be asked. All right, so we take a look here. They can ask this question in two ways, okay? Or they can test the skill in two ways, all right? So they'll ask you, does this prove that this source is wrong or this source is correct? So actually, the structure of the question is the same. It's just that at the end, it's slightly different. But the way to answer the question generally is the same. First, like I mentioned, the comparison between both, between both sources. All right. Now, if it's different, okay, for example, the first question, is different, then yes, it proves that A is wrong. Okay. Or if it's the same, then no, it does not prove, okay, that A is wrong. Okay, we're looking at the first question as an example here. Then after you do that already, right, you actually check the reliability of B. In this question, reliability of B. Now, why do we look at the reliability of B? Because if you can see, right, they ask the question, does B prove that A is wrong? So, right, the burden of proof, okay, burden of proof meaning that you have to use this source to prove. So the burden of proof is on this particular source, which is source B. Now, why is it B? If you take a look, if I cannot trust source B, can I use source B to prove that A is wrong? Cannot. If I cannot believe source B, can I use source B to prove that A is wrong? Cannot. So A becomes the main source. And what you need to check about B, you need to check if you can believe what B says. You need to check whether or not you can trust what B says. That is why you need to find the reliability of B. So how do you find the reliability of B? You either do cross-referencing or you look at the provenance analysis and the purpose of the source. All right, let's take a look at an example here. So this is probably a familiar source set. All right, so here, study sources A and B. Does source B prove that A is correct? Now, this is a familiar two sources. So if we take a look at these two sources here, again, this tells me that SG is attractive, right? This also tells me that SG is attractive, all right? I think in my previous videos, I did talk about and I did break down these two sources, so I don't think I want to go too much into detail already again. Now, oops, if I could just, I need to take a look at this, okay? So let me just do this here. So this is also saying that SG is attractive. Now, based on the comparison, because both sources are saying the same thing, then yes, B actually proves that A is right. Based on content, right? We look at this. Now, of course, if we look at cross-referencing, we need to find a source that also tells us that SG is attractive. And it cannot be either, so if you're looking at B, you cannot cross-refer to A because you already look at A, because A and B are the sources in question, right? So you need to look at another source. For example, it can be source C, it can be source D, source E, or source F. But the cross-reference has to be done to another source. So if you find another source that tells you, yeah, SG is attractive, then yes, the source supports source B, therefore it's reliable, therefore it can prove. But if you find another source that contradicts source B, and says that SG is not attractive, then you say that source B is not reliable, therefore it cannot prove that A is correct. Now, as we have also seen before, another way to check is if this is written by a minister, or a speech made by the minister, he's expected to say certain things, right? So expected to say good things about government, so on and so forth. Okay, good things about government. All right, about government. Okay, and the purpose is to let to have more foreigners come in to tour Singapore. Okay, because of the idea of the video promoting tourism, right? Because of this, right, the source becomes less objective, and therefore it is not reliable. So based on the provenance, we can tell that B is not reliable. So if B is not reliable, okay, it cannot prove, okay, that A is correct. All right. So that is basically how we go about answering a hybrid or combined skills proof question. All right. Remember, look at the main source, okay, to see whether or not you can believe or whether you can trust the main source, and then do a comparison between both sources and check the reliability of the main source. All right. This is actually one way that you can use to answer this particular question.